Amazing. And so we've got the lunch bell signal. It is officially 12 noon. So we're going to get started with our TMN Tuesday event. We're excited to have Sarah Coles join us from the Texas Children in Nature Network. Before we get started and introduce our fantastic speaker and her topic today, I want to share with y'all some of our webinar etiquette and our early tech check to make sure that everybody has the ability to participate in today's event. If this is your first TMN Tuesday, fear not. You are not able to share your video or unmute yourself as an attendee, but that's on purpose. Many times these events have over a couple hundred participants, and we want to make sure that we're giving our panelists and our speaker today the attention, the ability to communicate their topic today. We will however, be using another format to communicate with you. If you're getting to this point in the webinar and you're going, oh gosh, she's already switching through slides and I see her mouth moving, but I cannot hear her, this is a good time to check your audio. Make sure that you have toggled to those audio settings. Now, of course, if you can't hear me, I'm leaving this up on purpose so that you can read the screen, hopefully, and toggle those audio settings, turn that speaker on, turn the volume up, and make sure that you are able to hear all of the great information that Sarah is going to be sharing with us today. Just leaving that up for just one more second so everybody has the ability to grab the information for their audio settings. And then finally, we're going to be using our chat function today to participate in an interactive discussion with Sarah as she requests questions, and if you have any comments or feedback for our speaker today. We have both Richard Halbrin and myself monitoring chat, so we'll be able to translate that chat and those questions and ask that to Sarah during or at the end of her presentation as she requests. To help us as moderators of the chat room, please use clear and full sentence questions. Please avoid acronyms and make sure that we can generally understand the question that you're asking so that we can ask that question on your behalf. All of our chat is to stay on topic and professional as well. And to make sure that everybody can see your question, if you will toggle your chat to ... everyone, that way all of our attendees and panelists can see your questions as you're asking them today. And then finally, before we launch into today's topic, just leaving this up for just one more second, we do have a hotline available and a website available via our WebEx account to be able to help anybody who is still having issues getting into our WebEx today. And if you're joining us on Facebook Live, do know that we will be monitoring the questions but not able to answer them during the live webinar, and we'll go back in and try and answer those questions at the very end. All right, so jumping into today's topic and wasting no time so that Sarah has an ample amount of time to present her topic today. Sarah Coles is the Executive Director of Texas Children in Nature. She's going to talk today about the health and nature connection and dive deeper into some of the incredible work that the Texas Children in Nature Network collaborative programs are doing across the state, the strategic planning process that they've gone through, and the ways that Master Naturalists can help. Our TMN Tuesday event featuring Sarah is part of a series that's occurring throughout the year on the second Tuesday of each month. And so we encourage you to attend all of our events throughout the next couple of months as well. And one of our panelist speakers, Richard Halbrin, will be our feature speaker next month as he talks about Recovering America's Wildlife Act and the final efforts to move that landslide program through. I'm going to skip through these, Sarah, just to give you the time today, but this is our general introduction to the Master Naturalist program. And so if you are not a Master Naturalist and you are interested in joining the program, I'm going to drop our website in the chat here in just a second so that you can grab that link and find out more information about the Texas Master Naturalist chapter nearest you. All right, wrapping this up quickly again. Our final etiquette, attendees are not able to unmute or share video. Our chat function is open for on-topic and professional and respectful discussion only today. This session will count for 1 hour of advanced training for all certified Master Naturalists or Master Naturalists in training working to earn their certification. And then finally, we do have additional resources on our website, and we'll be sharing that link in the chat here shortly. And that recording of today's presentation will be on here. There's a lot of slides in this intro. I'm just trying to get you in the spotlight here, Sarah. So with that, now I am introducing Sarah Coles, is the Executive Director of the Texas Children in Nature Network. And I am going to stop my screen sharing and let you take on the ability to share your screen and your presentation today, Sarah.
Okay. Now make sure I get this all set correctly. We had a little tech run through at the beginning here. Here. Okay. So welcome everyone. As Michelle said, my name is Sarah Coles. I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Children in Nature Network. Our mission for TCINN is to ensure equitable access and connection to nature for all children in Texas. Michelle will be sharing our slides as we go through. There's going to be a lot of links and articles as I go through here. So I have linked them all within the presentation, and I'll also share some great places to find information as we go through as well. So just a little bit about myself, just to kind of let you all know who I am. My name is Sarah Coles, as I said. I use she, hers pronouns. I actually am a Master Naturalist. I did my training in the South Texas chapter, class of 2016. I am currently a member of the Capital Area Master Naturalists and serve as our Chair of Education and Outreach. So I am very excited today as part of the TMN Tuesday. My two favorite nature things that I like to do is I like to go out birding, and I am a National Park Service bucket lister, which means I'm trying to go to all 400 and I believe it's 53 sites now. I know that's a lofty goal. I'm currently at about 5. And so those are some of my favorite things to do out in nature. Also want to go ahead and give our land acknowledgement for Texas Children in Nature Network. I am based out of Austin, Texas, and as such, I am on the ancestral and unceded land of the Tonkawa, Comanche, and Sana people. The colonial presence in our land is something that we are trying to counteract through our work at Texas Children in Nature Network. So I just want to start with you all thinking about what are some of the things that you like to do outside, and why do you like going outdoors? So just kind of think about that for a second, maybe put a few things in the chat. Michelle and Richard, if you wouldn't mind sharing that, because it kind of, the chat's to my screen a little bit. So if you wouldn't mind sharing what people are saying.
Sure will. It looks like Rachel enjoys gardening. Tim enjoys forest bathing. Sue Ann says that she likes to go out in nature because birds live there. Debbie and Marianne or Anne look like they both enjoy gardening, birds, flowers. The list is definitely coming in faster than I can read it. So I'm just going to grab those that I can see very quickly. Candy says that she just enjoys being outside, listening to the wind in the trees.
Definitely. Yeah. So while you're thinking about, I want you to think about both of these questions as we go through our presentation today, especially the second one is like, why do you like going outside? Because actually there's a lot of science behind it. So I'm going to try to play our video real quick. This will tell you a little bit more about who we are and what we do.
When my kids have too much screen time, I can really tell. With the younger one, he tends to prefer to play on the iPad instead of ever reading or doing schoolwork. He turns into a beast and is hangry and mad, and the other one is disconnected from the family. 5 more minutes of screen time. The teachers have mentioned that they've are worried about the kids being on screen too much.
Texas has 10% of America's K through 12 population. That's about 7 million kids. Most of them log about 50 hours a week of screen time, and about a third of those students are overweight or obese. Bottom line, there's a critical disconnect between Texas youth and the outdoors. Helping solve this problem and creating the next generation of nature-minded citizens is what Texas Children in Nature does. There are thousands of organizations working across Texas to create access to nature and nature-based programming. TCIN partners with over 500 organizations ranging from health to education, community development, and conservation. These all form a collaborative network that drives efficiencies in providing better access to resources, nature-based programming, and best practices. It's a great support system for organizations and educators all across Texas.
On an annual basis, probably around 10,000 children come through the Wildflower Center, and our goal for them is to see that flower bloom, see a cricket hop, just experience nature, have their aha moment, and eventually become that next generation of stewards of nature. Texas Children in Nature helps bring all of the organizations that work with children in nature and brings us all together. Without Texas Children in Nature, we wouldn't be connected with other organizations in our community, in the state, and national.
As someone who has spent many years in the classroom, I can tell you that TCIN's network is so important, especially when it comes to resource equity. Not every region has the same access to materials and best practices. Most teachers don't even know where to start when it comes to building a green space or a natural play environment.
Texas Children in Nature helps prepare the next generation of conservation-minded Texans by working through creating a love of nature.
When we go outside, what I notice is that the kids are inquisitive. They talk to us. We actually have a conversation with them, and they listen to us, and they want to learn, which is pretty amazing.
And by creating a love for nature in our children, we're creating adults who care about the nature around us.
We're able to live really close to the Greenbelt, and that's really a big part of our lives. We come home, and it just seems like we get along a whole lot better. They're just different. It's just, they're good people.
Imagine a Texas where all 7 million kids go outside every day. They have access to green spaces, they get to play in nature, and they get to experience the outdoors. And maybe they learn to be caretakers of nature as they grow into adulthood. This is our mission at Texas Children in Nature.
So just a little bit of history about who we are and what we do. So in 2009, Senate Bill 205 resolved to the problem of nature deficit disorder through the creation of a working group between Texas Parks and Wildlife, TEA, and actually AgriLife, and a few other state agencies as well. So out of this group...
Can I interrupt you for just a second? I think when we optimized your shared screen for the video, it created a little bit of a blurriness on the text, and I'd love to be able to really highlight the text that you have. Can you stop sharing and change your share settings back to automatically adjust, I believe?
Certainly. Is that better?
It's coming. Yes, now we can read it. Thank you so very much.
No problem. So back in 2009, we were created through a working group, and then officially Texas Children in Nature was started in 2010. At that time, we were part of Texas Parks and Wildlife. In fact, I worked for TPWD for a few years before we became our independent nonprofit. And there were a few other people that had my position before me as well. On January 1st, 2021, Texas Children in Nature Network officially became an independent nonprofit. Since becoming a nonprofit, we have worked to set up a sustainable program that includes a full and diverse board, lots of fundraising, and a huge spectrum of initiatives that we're going to talk about some of those today. So Texas Children in Nature Network works off of a collective impact model. So there's 4 main goals within a collective impact model, and it all leads to collaboration. So the first is having a common agenda. For us, our big common agenda is to get more kids outside, and we work with lots of different partners to help us do that. We have mutually reinforcing activities. So we do all kinds of resource sharing that includes some things we're going to talk about later, like our webinars, teacher workshops, our summit. Also, lots of things like our newsletter and other things out that way as well. We have a continuous communications. We send out newsletters, we have social media, and so much more. And then it all comes down with an effective collective impact model. You need to have a strong backbone organization. And that is where Texas Children in Nature Network comes in. So we currently have 8 regional collaboratives across the state. And you'll see here I have a 9th bullet point because we are about our Waco collaborative. So if you are in the Waco area and you are interested in joining, please let me get pulling all of that stuff together right now. But we are in Caprock, which is this huge area over here. We know that's really big. We're working on making that smaller. North Texas, Austin, Piney Woods, which is this green section right here. The Coastal Bend, the Rio Grande Valley, and San Antonio. And those regional collaboratives, those regional collaboratives all have a regional who works with our partners within those regions, and they really are able to take a focused regional look at how we can get more kids outside in each of those regions. We work within 7 strategic areas of interest, all of it centered around equity. Equity is our second word in our mission statement, and we really feel strongly that everyone has a right to being able to access nature on a regular basis. So we work with health, education, access, community, network, policy, and marketing. And today we're going to be really focused on that health aspect. But just to let you know, these are our strategic goals that we set out during our strategic planning process last year. We just released our strategic plan for 2021 through 2023. In about this time last year, we released it. It's available on our website. So network to leverage the power of a diverse network and amplify impact. Access to nature, increase the number of welcoming natural spaces accessible for all children. Education, inspire educators. Health, engage the health community. Community, work with nature-based experiences with lots of different community-based organizations. And I would say Master Naturalists fall perfectly within that group because you're kind of covering a wide variety of the work you do. Policy, advocate and promote state, regional, municipal level, more access to nature. And marketing to raise awareness of nature and its benefits. So why time outdoors? We have lots of research on our website that goes for all of these bullet points, but we're going to be talking today about this first one, that kids who spend time out in nature are healthier physically and mentally. So I'm going to go through a few studies that we have linked on our website. And all of these, when you get the PowerPoint, all of these articles are linked, so you'll be able to find them. So first is mental health benefits. So in the last fall, in fall of 2021, the American Pediatric Association led with a national state of emergency for kids' mental health. And there's a lot of positive things that come out of kids regularly spending time in nature. There's a lot of studies that show that kids are able to deal with challenges better, they're able to relax more. ADHD symptoms have been reduced through spending time in nature. And so those are some really great benefits. Then healthy physical development. So our bones and joints and muscles were meant to be climbing, especially climbing trees, climbing over rocks. And so kids who are outside doing that regularly have much healthierly developed joints and bones and muscles. And then also that also comes down to risky play. So risky play is things like climbing over that log bridge or climbing that tree or seeing what happens if you jump from rock to rock. Things that, you know, we all grew up doing but aren't as common now. And all of that teaches healthy boundary setting. So kids are able to know, like, oh no, I can do that, or maybe I need some help doing this. Also, increased physical activity. We are seeing a dramatic increase in obesity in our kids. In fact, at this point, 1 in 5 kids under the age of 5 are considered obese, and that number is just growing for kids older. And all of these studies that have those numbers are all pre-COVID numbers. And we're seeing a lot of increase in that through the last 2 years because kids have been a lot more sedentary over the last couple of years. So students in green schoolyards, which a green schoolyard is where we have designed nature areas on school campuses. So they usually have looping pathways, they have trees, they have gardens, they have great places for kids to run around and play. And they experienced a 50% increase in physical activity in those spaces as compared to a regular traditional playground, which by that we mean kind of those plastic playgrounds that you see with the slides and maybe monkey bars. And what's interesting is those playgrounds were actually designed to replace the idea of climbing trees. So the playground concept that we are also familiar with in parks today were designed at the beginning of the 20th century because people were moving from the country into cities. And doctors at that time were starting to see the same symptoms we're seeing now with kids being a lot more sedentary and seeing, you know what, we need to get kids active in climbing. And so their solution was to build playgrounds. So what we're advocating for is actually, let's go back to the way it was before because it was working really well. Respiratory health. So 91% of children today live in areas that are negatively affected by air pollution. This means they live near a busy road. Maybe they live near a factory that is putting out air pollutants. And this is leading to an increase in symptoms like asthma, allergies are all affected by this. And what we're seeing is urban forests, particularly, are really greatly reducing air pollutants. And this is where we can see that in combination with things like green schoolyards are really positively impacting kids' health because we're putting trees on these green schoolyards. It's then reducing the air pollutants in the air around the schools. So social connectedness. By this, we mean that kids have friends and that they have people that they can rely on. This is really important given the last 2 years that a lot of our kids have lived through. We are seeing kids having more and more of an isolated feeling. They don't feel like they are connected to their classmates. They don't feel like they're connected to people in their community. And being outside in nature is a great way to increase that social connectedness. And this is being seen really with blue spaces. And what I mean by blue spaces is things that are near water. And it doesn't need to be a ton of water. It can be a stream, it can be a lake, it could be the ocean for those of you that live near the coast. But regularly spending time near blue spaces experience a greater sense of social connectedness. And so it's a great way to make sure you're spending time out on the water, whatever that may be. I talked a little bit about obesity pandemic earlier, but as I said, increased physical activity is really key for reduction in obesity. We also see this with green schoolyards. A lot of our green schoolyards are putting in school gardens as well as part of their green schoolyard project. And that means they're putting in gardens that have healthy fruit and so kids who are spending time planting those fruits and vegetables to eat those fruits and vegetables. So it's also increasing healthy food habits. But also we are seeing that it's really important to have free play. And by free play, I mean letting kids go out there and use their imaginations and play without having something like a sport or a structured activity, because that not only is an increased physical activity that kids are engaged in, but because it is using their whole body, it's actually using, it's burning more calories, it's active, much more active than something like a sport. So or even something like a traditional playground. So when kids are playing on a more traditional playground, they're often using 50 to 80% of their muscle, of their brain power to play on that, because they know how far apart a monkey bars rungs are. There's a lot of muscle memory that goes in, and so they're not having to think about it as hard. In a nature play space, kids are having to think really hard and engage all of their muscles when they're engaged in that play. And so it is really a much healthier way of playing. And so we're seeing some really great research coming out about that. Next, we have decreased anxiety and rumination. So kids these days have some really high rates of anxiety, really nervous about things that are going on around them. They're seeing a lot of things at school and their community that are leading to a lot of worry. And then rumination, this might be a new phrase for you. The first time I heard it in a talk like this, I had no idea what it was. So rumination is that feeling where maybe you're thinking about something that happened that you didn't like. So how many of you kind of out of the blue will be like, oh, that conversation was terrible? Or you're maybe really thinking about how someone maybe hurt your feelings if you're a kid or even adult. So that's an example of rumination, and rumination leads to spikes in proteins in our body that lead to higher blood pressure, also are linked to obesity. So we want to reduce our rumination numbers. And after just a 50-minute walk in a natural setting, we're seeing a significant decrease in both anxiety and rumination. And that 50-minute walk is what was used in this study by Bratman, but we're seeing more and more that number can actually be lower. With as little as 20 minutes outside, we're seeing reduction in anxiety and rumination. And so it's really key. I just saw quickly on the chat that someone said something about going out for a walk at lunch. That's perfect. That can really lead to a reduction in your anxiety during the workday, and so much more so for kids. And the nice thing about in this study, a 50-minute walk is that's also some great exercise for kids as well. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone, basically. So also high blood pressure and diabetes. We are seeing increased levels of high blood pressure and diabetes in kids. They're just really having a hard time these days. And so increased outdoors activities reduces the risk factors of high blood pressure and diabetes to a significant level. So lastly, we have sleep and green exercise. So sleep is really key for kids. It is really one of the main things that leads to healthy development. Kids need a lot of sleep because they're growing. And so one of the best ways that we have seen for kids to have natural and healthy sleep patterns is to have exposure to sunlight before noon. I know that's even something that I try to do as an adult, is I try to get outside and go for a quick walk in the morning just to get that natural sunlight, get some vitamin D early in the morning, and it really helps set your circadian rhythm, and so that you are able to then get to sleep easily later in the day. And I like to think it means I drink less coffee. I'm not sure if that's true, but I tell myself that. And then lastly, we have green exercise. So what we mean by green exercise is maybe something that you would normally do in the gym. I think a lot of us learned that there were a lot of things that we could do outside that we couldn't do in a gym at the beginning of the COVID lockdowns, because all of a sudden we couldn't go to the gym. And so we are seeing that actually doing your exercise outside is not only good for you because you're moving around and you're active, but you're also getting a lot of those great vitamin D, fresh air, and it's actually more healthy for you than doing the exercise in the gym. So before I move on, I know I've covered a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. So I didn't know if there were maybe some questions.
Yeah, Sarah, we had a few questions come in already. One that I posed, and as you were talking about the scientific references for the health and growth of children engaging in outdoor play, I wonder if there's a correlation to their long-term success as healthy, engaged, successful adults as well.
We are starting to see that. So a lot of this research is still fairly new. So this area, kind of the earliest studies I was seeing were from probably about 2010. And so we are just getting to the point where we're starting to see some of those kids as adults. And so some of those long range studies we're not seeing yet. But we are definitely, these kids are becoming healthier as adults. And there was one study I actually was kind of going through last night, seeing if there were any updated ones I wanted to add into my presentation. And there was one that did talk about that they have been following a set of kids for a while, and they are seeing a correlation between kids that were outdoors exercising regularly as kids. They developed healthy throughout their childhood, and now they're much more likely to spend time outdoors as adults and keep those patterns that they had as a kid into adult life.
Excellent, excellent. And I'm sure that there also are studies happening. There was a question about mimicking adults, parents taking their kids outside and the kids learning the healthy interactions with nature by mimicking and watching their parents' interactions.
There is a lot of research showing that definitely having an adult that you are able to watch do it is key. Often I will talk not just about children, but children and families, because you rarely will see a 5-year-old out in the park by themselves. They usually have an adult with them. And so we really do think about, it's not just the kid, it's the whole family that's maybe participating in nature together. And we really feel strongly that kids who see adults who they trust and have a good relationship with, seeing them take time to spend time outside is really important. And then also taking time together to spend time outside and make it a priority as a family is really key as well.
Great, thank you. There was a few more questions about specific locations of some of your collaborations, and I've dropped the link for your website and the slides that you've shared with us today, so folks can reach out and contact those local communities as well.
Definitely, and later I'll share my email address. You're always free to email me and I can get you in touch with your local regional leader. But also on our website, we do have the contact information for our regional leaders as well. And we would love for all of you to join our regional collaboratives. I know that in several of our collaboratives, we have some really active master naturalists. And so we're always excited to see you all join us.
Excellent, thank you.
So as I said, all of these studies are linked, but I also wanted to give you some places where you could find some more information if this is something that you really want to dig in and do some more research on your own. The first is the Children in Nature Network Research Library. So we, as Texas Children in Nature Network, participate with a larger national group called the Children in Nature Network. If you get us confused, that is fine. It happens often. Don't worry about it. We're used to helping people out who get confused between the two. But they have a fantastic research library. So they have someone on staff whose full job is to comb through research articles, to talk to researchers who with the work they are doing. And they have all of this available to you on their research library, and it's all free to access. So you are able to find research there. It is my go-to. That's the first place that I'll go to whenever I'm looking for some research, and often I'll find what I'm looking for there. Next up is our website. So we try to put as much research as we can up on our website as well. It is a great option. And then we also do our own webinars. So we have a monthly webinar series that we do. I'll talk about this in a little bit. But we do record our webinars and we put them up on our YouTube channel. And so you're welcome to watch those at any point. Some really great ones compared with the work that we are talking about today that we've had in the past is we've had a psychiatrist talk about the importance on our mental health of spending time outside. We have also had some professors at Trinity University in San Antonio talk about some research they have been doing with their students at the university, particularly on the anxiety and rumination aspect that we talked about. So those are some great webinars that we have shared as well. And lastly, check out our LinkedIn page on for Texas Children in Nature Network. I try to share any articles that I find that are cool. I try to put those up on there as well. So it's a great place to stay caught up on research as it's coming out. And as I said, when we share these slides, all of these things are linked. So you'll be able to pull those links if they're coming too fast and furious in the chat. So a big thing that we are launching this year is our Health and Nature Liaisons. So we were awarded a grant through Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. We are sharing on a grant with from the Department of State Health Services that all came from CDC money that came from the CARES Act that was passed last year. So the CARES Act set aside money for COVID relief and then also for addressing health disparities that have become highlighted because of COVID. All of that trickled down to a project that we are going to be, well, we have launched and we are still launching in one of our regions. It is our Health and Nature Liaisons. And so they are going to be working in 3 metro areas in the state to really look at how we can put nature as a health strategy in those cities. We have seen across Texas that a lot of the comorbidities that went with COVID were really high. And so our staff are really going to be working within communities to see how they can help make nature a way that parents really think about having healthy kids. So we have hired 2, and we are currently hiring our 3rd Health and Nature Liaison. The first is in Houston. Her name is Robin Cabetta. She is a public health worker from Houston area who is really passionate about nature, and she's joining our team. And then in the Rio Grande Valley, we've got Marisa Oliva. Some of you may know her. She was very active with the World Birding Centers for a long time. And so she has joined our team as our RGV Health and Nature Liaison. And I am currently interviewing for our Dallas-Fort Worth position. So hopefully that person on the next few days. So their work is really to engage community leaders and serve as a connect.
Richard, I think we might have lost Sarah.
Yes, it appears that we did.
Okay. So if y'all will hold on for just a second, I believe Sarah might have had a momentary glitch in her connection. So let's give her just a second to come on back.
While Mary Pearl tries to get a hold of Sarah, maybe we can have a discussion in the chat. There were several comments about a severe lack of public areas and public play spaces in communities. And so if anyone in the chat has had experience with solutions for that, especially in rural areas, add your thoughts to the chat.
She might have to leave and then come back.
We'll be sure to ask Sarah this question when she gets back, but Donna asks, how do I convince my 12-year-old nephew that I'm cool and so is nature? And I think, Donna might be saying that tongue in cheek, but I think actually that's a very valid question. How do we connect with kids, and how do we, what tools do we need as naturalists and educators and passionate outdoors people to connect to a generation that is very different than what we're used to or what we grew up on. Even my 15-year-old daughter connects with nature and her friends differently. And I will always be the cool dad in my brain, but not necessarily with 12-year-old nephews. So we'll hold off on more discussion now that Sarah's back, but I think these are something to think about.
Sarah, do we have you back now?
I guess I didn't know I had left you.
Yep, it's okay. You left at the very end of that slide. You were just kind of wrapping up the previous slide. So
Okay.
We lost you for about 3 minutes or so.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. We are working out, we are working with our health and nature liaisons on this systems change model. So the idea that we're wanting to do is time in nature is a major tool for healthy kids and how we can really impact that. And so we want to look at what are all the things that flow into that allow us to make some major change. So the first thing we look at is relationships. So who are the people that we're working with? So for this program, we're working with educators, nature professionals, and health professionals. What are the power dynamics in those relationships? So for this, we really are going to be engaging with city leadership to really make some lasting changes. We look at policies. So I'm going to talk about all of these in an upcoming slide, but we're looking at a Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights, the Park RX program, and how we can use joint use agreements between cities and school districts. Some practices, we're thinking about recess, we're thinking about field trip experiences, and resource flows. So this comes down to the money and the time. And so we are looking at funding from the CDC is funding our work, but also we've got lots of money going to health professionals for this idea of One Health. So if you haven't heard about One Health yet, One Health is the idea that we as humans are healthier when the environment around us is healthier. And so the impacts that we make on our environment are both good for us as humans, but also good for our plants and animals that are around us as well. And a big resource that we're able to push on this is we're hiring staff. These are 3 new staff members that we're adding to our team here at Texas Children in Nature Network. Oh no, my slides went away. I mean, my pictures went away. I'll tell you about these things, and I don't know why my pictures aren't showing, but park prescriptions is the idea, and this is also known as Park RX. It's the idea that doctors and other health professionals are giving a prescription to people to spend time in nature. So studies have shown that people who have a piece of paper or an email or something that is actually a prescription, they are much more likely to follow that health advice than just having a doctor say, you know, you really should spend some time outside. And so we have doctors in the state of Texas that are looking at starting the park prescription program. Green schoolyards. So I talked a little bit earlier about having nature on their campuses. And so we are looking at using joint use agreements between a city and a local ISD to build green schoolyards. So especially back in the 60s and 70s, when a lot of ISDs were building schools across the state, often they needed some financial support from the cities that they were in order to buy the land to build those schools. And so a lot of times that means that there's actually, if you go back in the records, a joint use agreement, which means that those cities should be able to use those school grounds as a park outside of school time. So we are looking at finding those joint use agreements and then working with the ISDs in the city to actually make it that is happening and people are able to use those schoolyards as a park for their community. And then we have our Olay Texas initiative. So Olay Texas is a program where we are putting outdoor learning environments and green spaces into early childhood centers. And so kids are spending regular time outside playing in those spaces. And then our big one is a Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights. This is a copy of the Austin one that was passed by the City Council a few years ago. We are currently working on making one of these that will be statewide and then available for local regions and cities to make one that's a little more tailored to their own city. But the one that we're working off of is the Austins, which is every child has a right to climb a tree, catch a fish, picnic in a park, hike a trail, ride a bike, splash in a creek or river, discover plants and wildlife, play in the sand and mud, gaze at the night sky, chase a firefly, plant a seed and watch it grow, and harvest a fruit or vegetable. So we are really hoping that by creating a statewide one of these, and we're hoping that then we'll be able to take it to the Texas legislature and have them endorse it, that we really will make an impact that says, hey, here in Texas, we believe that kids have the right to play outdoors. So how can Master Naturalists get involved? So engage with our health and nature liaisons. So I told you we've got our 2 already and we're hiring our 3rd. So if you're in any of those regions, please let me know and I can get you their contact information. And I am sure that they would love having your support as Master Naturalists. They are engaging on some really ambitious work. And so they could certainly use some volunteer help from you all, but also just having an advocate that is engaged with their community as well. So engage in your community, encourage people to spend time in nature. You can participate in events like Walk with a Doc. So these are events that a lot of our partners do, a lot of our health partners do. So it is an opportunity where doctors will meet people out in the parks and just go on a walk together. And so they're spending time in nature together, and having you going and participating in those events is a great way to encourage more people to spend time in nature. So I'm gonna just throw this out there. We need to all stop gatekeeping. I'm gonna give you an example of this that I ran into last year myself. I was really excited. I was going out birding. I was going to a pretty popular birding location. I had my recently upgraded binoculars that I was really proud of, but I do not have the top of the line binocs. I have what I can afford and what I can reasonably use. And I was there and I heard someone telling people who were brand new to birding, where they're kind of for the first time figuring out if this might be something that they want to do. And they had a pair of Swarovski binoculars that they were bragging about how much they cost, and said, in my opinion, if anyone's serious about a hobby, they should be willing to spend this much money. That's not possible. And I think we need to make sure that we're encouraging people to spend time in nature, whatever it looks like for them. I have engaged with folks where they are. If you don't have the right boots for a walk, that's okay. We're glad you're here, and get them engaged. And lastly, volunteer with our partners. So we are really working with partners all across the state, and they are starting to, as we go through this project, they're going to start having some new programs as well, and they're going to need volunteers to help them implement those programming. Another great way to engage your community or your family is our family nature walks. So we put these up on our social media in the mornings, and it's just a prompt to get you out, taking a walk with your family, having conversations, spending time in nature. Some recent ones are up here. So look for something green, sing a walking song, and maybe look for opposites while you're out on a walk. I want to invite you all to join us for our summit. It's December 7 through 9 in Austin this year. And so we're going to be sending out more information about that as we start getting closer. And we are going to be opening up our request for session proposals this week. So definitely be on the lookout for that as well. I talked a little bit about our webinars. Just want to let you know some ones that are coming up. So all of our webinars are up on our YouTube channel, so you can always watch our past ones. But some ones that we have coming up in May, we'll have green gentrification in Texas cities. In June, we'll have how to develop activities that students love and teachers use. And then in July, we've got building bridges through inclusive storytelling. And then we also offer teacher workshops to help teachers feel comfortable teaching kids outside in those beautiful green schoolyards that we're working on putting in across the state. And then one we have coming up this month is Home on the Range, which is a K through 5th grade teacher workshop. It's using the Rangelands curriculum that's out of the Welder Wildlife Foundation. And then you can get involved with Texas Children in Nature by joining a regional collaborative. Joining any one of our strategic area calls, we have those monthly, and then your chapter can become a partner of Texas Children in Nature. The form, when you get this link, the form will take you, the link will take you to that form. So before I finish up and I start some Q&A, our social media chat links are here. Please feel free to follow us on social media. We do try to post pretty regularly on those. And then lastly, my contact information is here. Please feel free to email, call, visit our website. So I am going to stop sharing and open it up for Q&A.
Amazing. Thank you so very much, Sarah, for a fantastic introduction into the programs that you guys host and all of the incredible work that you guys do and the research that really is justifying the engagement across the communities. I believe Richard's been helping to monitor chat, and so I think he might have some questions geared up and ready for you.
I sure do, Sarah. Thank you for that presentation. Debbie Went asks, there used to be an app called Get Out There that listed outdoor activities in your area. I don't see it anymore. Are any apps like that available? And I'll add to that, do you all endorse or encourage any other specific apps that we should look into?
Yeah, so we have a website. We don't have an app yet. That is definitely something we have been looking at. But we have a website called naturerockstexas.org, and I will put it, or Michelle can put it in the chat. And it has listing of green spaces across the state, and then also our partners are able to put their activities up there as well. So there's a calendar feature where you can look for maybe what the San Antonio Botanical Gardens has coming up, or so on. And when you get to naturerockstexas.org, you'll be able to choose a region, and then it'll take you to that region's page, and you'll be able to find stuff that's close to you.
And the other part of that question was, are there any apps that are particularly helpful in getting kids outdoors or engaged with outdoor activities?
Yeah, so the Seek app is part of iNaturalist. And it is geared more towards kids. So I highly recommend the Seek app. It's SEEK. And I personally also use AllTrails quite a bit when I am looking for hiking trails to go on for myself.
Excellent. And Seek is not only for kids, it is also for adults, and it is well loved and used by many master naturalist adults as well.
Sarah, when you disappeared from the from the video, we were starting the conversation. Donna asks, how do I convince my 12-year-old nephew that I'm cool and so is nature? And even if that's a tongue-in-cheek question, could you speak a little bit to how we might relate to 12-year-olds or young kids when some of us may be a little further removed from that age bracket?
Yeah. I think finding out what your 12-year-old nephew's interests are. I think we often think about spending time in nature in some pretty narrow categories of I'm going out birding or I'm going out herping. But for us, for Texas Children in Nature, I try to think of it as spending time in nature can be doing a wide variety of things. One of our health and nature liaisons, during the interview process, I asked them, what is something you like to do outside? And she goes, I like dancing. And so she just goes to the park and dances out in nature. And that is not something that I would have ever thought about as saying, like, you could go do this. But find out first, like, what interests them? What's the kind of thing that they like to do? Engage with that. And then also, I think it's really important to set that example. and really show that you are going out regularly and inviting them to come along and try out different things. If they're, maybe don't know what their interest is, try a wide variety of things. They may find something that they be really interesting. I also would recommend hooking up with that are going outside regularly, that maybe they can make friends in as well.
And Sarah, you talked about in your presentation equitable access to green space in all the communities across Texas. I think that also starts with helping to define what out in nature is, or where nature can be found. I've had so many discussions with master naturalists and with different outdoor conservationists who have defined nature as some grand location to destine to. Where to me the definition of nature might just be the birds that are on this street corner that my office is located on, or this green space that I have in my front yard space. So defining nature much broader than that very narrow kind of early historical context of a faraway destination that has to be preserved and kept or driven to. I think that's important for me as well.
Yeah. And also knowing that sometimes a lot of people have a lot of anxiety when it comes to big nature. So by that, I mean like going out and backpacking in Big Bend is probably something that's beyond a lot of people. So I often think of scaffolding in nature. So in education, we talk about scaffolding all the time, and that you start with one skill and you build on it. And thinking about that in terms of nature as well, like starting with something small and then building on that experience.
Absolutely. Richard, are there some more questions? I have not been watching chat. It looks like there's a lot of discussion.
So I think, Donna, if this is the same one that asked the original question saying he loves to swim. So yeah, definitely finding maybe places that are natural swimming holes or going out to the river, taking advantage of that activity that he already loves.
We did have a comment, Sarah, when you were talking about the scarcity of some parks and places to gather, especially in rural communities. We had one question of how can we change that? So what are some mechanisms that very passionate, very well organized, very knowledgeable volunteers can do to actually create more green spaces that are accessible?
Yeah, this is a huge challenge for us in Texas. So in Texas, we only have 5% public land. That is a very small number compared to many states. And there are a few strategies that we can take. One is advocating with your local officials and saying, hey, we need more green space. But also for those of you that are private landowners or maybe no private landowners, talking to them about how they can help get kids on that land. I've seen some really fantastic examples where private landowners are opening up for student groups to come and do science on their land, and really also getting some great benefits for themselves. So an example is here in Austin, Austin Youth River Watch takes kids out to a few ranches around the Austin area. And so they'll go and they're doing water quality testing and they're doing invasives removal on that land as part of their learning process. But then they're also getting to go hiking and camping on that land as well. So that ranch owner is getting some great benefits by having invasive species removed from their land, but also the kids are getting to play on that land as well. Michelle, I think you're muted.
I am, of course. I was just saying to myself, apparently, that we've got a few more minutes to wrap up our webinar, and have so enjoyed having you. And there's lots of fantastic discussion happening in the chat. But if there's some kind of parting engagement requests that you have for Master Naturalists to connect to the local TCIN groups or to connect with their local schools and local youth organizations. If you'll just share some of those kind of last minute comments.
I think the first one is to get involved with your regional collaborative. You will get to know your partners really well that are in the region, and definitely maybe even find a volunteer opportunity as well. And so that is my first thing that I would say. And then also, please come to our webinars and attend our summit as well.
Excellent. All right, Richard, anything else?
No, there's lot of comments about thank you for this thought-provoking presentation and folks enjoying your comments and your time.
Thank you so much, everyone. And please feel free to email me if you've got further questions.
Absolutely. I'm going to drop the link for your website in the chat one more time so that everybody can grab that. And thank you guys so very much for joining our TMN Tuesday event. We have our May speaker is actually with us today. Richard is going to be our May TMN Tuesday speaker, and we're excited to share more information about Richard's presentation via our website, our email, and our social media here in the next week or so. Thank you again, Sarah. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Sarah.